All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Expansion Pack podcast, where we download this week's gaming news and we bring it straight to you. As we said in the beginning there, we got a lot to talk about. Jedi Survivor, brand new game, just came out last week. Redfall just came out this week. And then we got some PlayStation 5 Pro rumors that are starting to pick up a little bit of steam today. So definitely a lot to talk about this episode. I'm your host, Denzel, a.k.a. Black Ice, joined by my co-host. Each episode, starting off with my guy, Mr. Goop Master Flex in the middle there. How you doing, bro?
Oh, we gooping. You know, and since we're talking about the topic, we're gooping like a pro today.
Gooping like a pro today. Interesting. All right. And then we got my guy, Mr. 525, all the way to the side. May 25th, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on, bro?
I'm good, y'all. I'm good. Feels like it's been a minute. It hasn't been that long, but it's been a minute, you know.
It's been a minute. Cool. It's been about 2 weeks. We had some technical issues, you know. We couldn't get an episode out there, but you know, we're back. We're back. Hopefully, getting to a more consistent schedule as we draw a little bit closer to not E3. But yeah, you know, we'll talk. We'll get to that at a different time. We got a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right into it, my boys. Chris, you already know what it is, man. Take us away.
Time for the buffer. Y'all see that? You see how I did that? That was fire, right? That was new. That was just right off top. I was like, let me try that. That's hard. No. I said, all right. Anyway. Oh, that was really close. Okay. Anyway, the buffer. How would you, or what would you add to your favorite game that you currently play right now? And like, what would you add to it to take it over the top, to make it like even better? So it's not necessarily saying that the game is bad by any means. Obviously, it's your favorite game, but like, obviously, I think everybody has that critique that they can give to their favorite title that just would like make it a non-stop playable game type of thing. For me, people who know me know I am a very big Destiny fan. So I play a lot of Destiny, and I'm not a dense Destiny fan, so I understand that the game has a lot of issues, you know, with certain things. And I truly just believe that they are like a new game mode of some sort, away from coming back to like good relevancy. That and some love for the Crucible, I think, would go quite a long way. Like even like a lot of new maps and shit like that would go a long, long way. There's a lot of people out there who kind of just think they should just say fuck all that and just go straight to D3. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't know how I fully feel about that 100%. I just know that they steady complaining about how they can't do X, Y, and Z because of the limitations in whatever they got going on over there. And yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But if they just added some kind of game mode that just really got people lit up again to kind of like do their thing, some kind of Destiny Bungie version of a BR, some kind of, I don't know, DMZ type of mode, I'm here for. Something, you know, something to just kind of be like, all right, yo, you try and get on and go run that? Yeah, let's do it. Because I feel like that's what it's missing. It hasn't had that in a while, unless you're a person who raids a lot, which I don't get the chance to do. Yeah, that shit's missing for you. Something that you could just jump right into a playlist and just literally keep trying to win it would be really, really fire. But then also put good prizes, because that's also a big problem too. You could get to the pinnacle in some things in Destiny, and the prize is like very mid. You know what I'm saying? So they got to fix that as well. But yeah, they do that, and I think that game will come a lot back for a lot of people. But I don't know, Bungie watches to get any kind of advice, so you know, I don't know.
You know, thinking about it, imagine an extraction mode, man. I know you mentioned like DMZ, like, you know, just like you said, you know, having a mode exclusively for like, let's say there's like drop of the week, and it's like a very rare drop, but you have to, you know, hop on these DMZ / you know, this is extraction mode, and you just got to get it. I don't know. I feel like extraction shooters is becoming more of like a trendy thing now, or like the main trend, slowly creeping up. I'll say, it's like, you know, we've seen Battlefield try it, Call of Duty do it as well, but I think it would make sense for a looter shooter like Destiny.
The main thing I want to see from Destiny is some innovation, man. Just something different. Like I really would hope that they don't do that extraction mode or like the BR thing. Like, I just want them to do something completely different. Like, again, obviously, like we've talked about this before, but like it's obviously a very different studio from what it was back in the Halo 2 days. But like Halo 2 like revolutionized gaming, right? Revolutionized online gaming, to be specific. And I would love to see Bungie recapture some of that magic again. Like, obviously, Destiny's, it's a great game. It's probably one of the best shooters out there right now on the market, still coming out with consistent content. But there's nothing different for me, like I think it does do some cool things like on the single player side of things. But like as far as competitive multiplayer goes, like it's not interesting anymore. And that's a large part of why I moved away from the game. And yeah, I would love to see them get that spark again around competitive multiplayer. But
yeah,
Where
same.
that goes. Manny, you got an answer for this one?
Yeah, and this ain't my favorite game particularly, but since I know they like to put the narrative on me that NBA 2K is my favorite game, I got an answer for not only NBA 2K but a lot of sports games because I do love sports.
Don't do it. But you're gonna take my answer, aren't you? Go ahead.
Well, this was just been a thing that like. I've been at least mentioning for a while, and like, when we play our sports games, it's like, why can't they just have a co-op My Career mode or like a co-op superstar mode in Madden and stuff like that, where it's like you can just, like let's just say the NBA, for example, NBA 2K, just roll up in the squad of your boys, just like going through a season, and not only that, but like even like a co-op season. Where you just play online and then like you play a certain amount of games and then you get to the playoffs and stuff like that. Just like how like Madden Ultimate Team works, or I'm not a big like NBA.
You mean like franchise, like a co-op franchise in a way, but like with My Career.
Yeah, like how in Madden when you do like the 3-player co-op with you play a certain amount of games to get to the playoffs and then you get to the playoffs.
Yeah,
like that. You know what I mean? Like even like if you do something like that, it'll still be dope. Like. Yeah. Just let's say you just pick a random team and then or like a team gets randomized for you, but like it's just the three of us, like or like a whole squad of 5 just chilling NBA court, that kind of thing.
Yo, you just
I mean, isn't that technically what like pro is?
I guess you can say that is what program is, but like if you do like more of like an in-depth season kind of thing, like I'm saying more of like a co-op season, like offline with your boys, like 3 people.
I know what you're. I see what you're talking about.
There's that, and then there's like the competitive aspect of like the, like I said, there's like there'll be 2 variants, like there's the co-op My Career, and then there's the co-op I guess like. I don't know. I guess you could say
like an offline mode, but also I get where you're going with it.
Like PVE, saying like player versus computer.
Yep.
That's more of the main focus. I guess you could say they already have that with Pro Am with like the other stuff, but
nah.
There's really no end. There's really no end goal to Pro Am. Like you're just playing games just for a record. And a lot of people just end up creating a new Pro Am just to have a better record, which is like still kind of useless. But
yeah, I agree.
If you add like an incentive to like, doing a Pro Am like a 3v3 or 5v5 and you just, like I said, you just play, like, the regular season games and then go to the playoffs. And then if you win, like, the NBA finals, then it's, like, incentivize it. Get VC or exclusive clothing, maybe. Something that will make it worthwhile. But don't do anything cheesy because I know the rewards has been pretty lacking in 2K personally.
Yeah.
Let me give you all a spin on this because I actually really like that idea. I ain't gonna hold you, man. I think that's one of the best ideas you had in a little bit. That shit kind of fire. You know what I'm saying? But like, hear me out. No. Don't be offended. Don't be offended. It was a compliment, bro. All right? Now, what if they did it, right? Like how you're saying, it's a multiplayer co-op, but like they gave it the same kind of like storyline treatment like how they actually give the single player co-op. But like, so what if they started experimenting with things like you and your boys are on an AAU circuit or some shit like that, or like you or your boys are recruits in a high school that are all getting ready to go to college and y'all all decide to go to Kentucky because y'all all got in type shit, and now you got to play seasonal games together. with storyline bullshit in the middle. That shit kind of hard, bro.
No facts. And then like, I like how you mentioned that because like it doesn't always have to be co-op too, right? Like just like a connected my career, you know, or like I'm, you know, playing for the Bucks, and then like my boy Denzel playing for, you know, the Orlando Magic, and then it's just like we're just playing that season. It's like, oh, contract year, what's gonna happen? And then be like, yo, you can slide through, come this way. Bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that would be dope. And like same thing for like Madden too. That would like
so that's where I thought you were going with that, like in the sense of a franchise mode, like where you're all playing my career in the same franchise.
Yeah,
that
like I didn't elaborate it like enough, but like yeah, I like that for like an, you know, like I said, like an offline / online kind of thing. Like it'll be online, of course, but like you're going against like mostly like CPU,
right?
Unless it's like your boys on the other team,
just, right? Like that would be fire. I would love that.
The only thing that would suck, obviously, is because like since you are playing with each other, and it's like you go on the bench. It's like what happened? You got to watch the game now because you're in the bench. But
yeah, it's part of the game, right?
Because like we talk about, we played like I know we had this play league in Madden we haven't touched in a while, and like we're all defensive players, and it's like, bro, like the off season happened, and we're just talking like, yo, man, we got a spot for you in this, you know, and it's like. The potential, and I feel like I know they're not gonna do it because it's not the money maker, but like the potential, honestly, is there.
Yeah, everybody keeps saying that. I don't really. I'm not bought in on the idea like that. People keep like Chris. Don't get too worked up on that comment because there's this narrative that people always say like, oh well, Madden doesn't prioritize anything other than Ultimate Team because Ultimate Team makes them money. Look, I understand that. But at the end of the day, the game has to be good in totality. Did you see that whole movement that people had when Madden a completely fucked up franchise and they had no choice but to come out with all these statements and talk about all this stuff? Like I think there's a lot more that sells the game than just Ultimate Team. I actually think that there's I would venture to guess that probably at least 60% of people who pick up Madden probably don't fuck with Ultimate Team. And at some level, you know, if you lose that 60% of people buying the game, like it's gonna hurt you probably more than if you like just stop focusing on Ultimate Team altogether. Like I think there's a give and take with that shit. So I'm not big on that narrative that like they don't really care about it because it doesn't make money. Like it makes them money.
I would argue this definitely would. I really do. Man, what?
Like, we already know, like, Madden is the best-selling sports game, and 2K is, you know, like, they're the high-tier sports games. There's no competition. Nothing's going to take over it. So, like, I feel like they're not going to be as motivated to do something innovative just because of it.
I think the problem is that they're motivated to only do one innovative thing a year. I don't think that they don't do anything innovative. I just think it's limited to one feature, and I think... So, you know, like it's a hit or miss for like certain section of people. It's like, oh, like I'm someone who loves to run the ball when I play Madden. Like they made a feature that was specifically for me. And then like there's like the other 60% of people out there who really just pass the ball and bomb it every play. So like they don't care about that shit, right? So they're like, oh, well, this sucks. You know, like there's always this balance, and it's like you can't satisfy everybody at once because you only I don't even know if it's necessarily that they can only focus on one thing at a time because they're making an annual game, but they choose to only focus on one thing at a time. One way or the other, they are only focusing on one thing at a time, and you can't satisfy everyone when you're only focusing on one thing at a time.
Yeah, I feel like part of it also is like I hate when they take out things and then just for it to be brought back in the future later game. You know what I mean? Like directional passing essentially was like a feature in a previous Madden before, but obviously like. We probably went a little bit more in depth to it, but like it's still a feature that was there in the past.
Well, directional passing never went anywhere though. You could always lead your receivers. They just expanded on it. So I don't know if that's the best example.
There was, I think it was Madden 18 or something like that. I seen a clip and it was like a clip of literally like you'll see, you know, the marker where the ball's gonna land and the guy's aiming it as he's about to throw it. Like it was a thing of not even like a long time ago, but like the last 5 years.
I don't know about
I
that.
have to look it up. I have to look up a video, but I did see a video before. And it was like a feature that was there, but they took it out because I don't know. I guess people don't use it or something.
I have a question for you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if this is possible, but I wanted to know if you guys think this is feasible. You know how like we talked about it, like kind of being a thing where you can kind of just like play with your friends and kind of like do an AU circuit or whatever the case is. Do you think it's possible for them to create this My Player mode in a way where like you do the whole college recruitment thing and you're in there with your boys and y'all are all playing together on the college level, right? And then they do the draft. And in the draft, y'all gonna obviously all go to different teams, right? How do they set that up in a way where like it's more realistic, you know what I'm saying? In the sense where, I don't know, I went to Boston, you went to Orlando, you went to Oklahoma City. I don't know.
So what does
but you feel me though? Like, how do they do that in a way where like now my games affect your games? And your record is legitimately posting in my shit when I play. And then when our teams go against each other, we actually physically go head up for real. Like, I think there's something there where, like, they could literally, if they got that shit right, scrap that old My Player shit, because that shit would be trash compared to that other thing. That shit almost makes it feel like another spin on how they kind of do the sports MMO thing. Like, that's kind of interesting, man, to think if they could pull that off.
Literally what you're describing is franchise mode. It's literally just like in Madden, there's something called connected franchises, and it's like I control the Titans and Manny controls the Texans and whatever. And like you don't have the my career element to it where like you're only controlling one individual player. You're literally controlling an entire team. And like I played my team this week and so on and so forth. And like, you know, it shows us all these different stats with all the games that are going on around the league. Like, I don't think it's that hard to do in a 2K setting where like I think the challenge maybe, or the thing that I've never seen done before, is where we could be playing on the same team. That element is the element that would be interesting to me. Like if you expand it further than that, because I really do think it wouldn't take 2K that much to just say like, all right, we have a connected My Career mode where like when you're playing your league games, it's happening basically at the same time as, you know, when you're playing with your friends, or like when your friends are playing. I don't think that's necessarily hard. But at the same time, I don't think that that's necessarily compelling either. Like doing it on its own just that way. I think what makes it compelling is if like people could play on the same team together, and like that's when I think people might take a little bit more notice, and like it might be worth their time, because it'd be different enough and it'd be engaging enough that like, oh, all right, I'm gonna play my rookie contract this way, but then like I'll find a way to get a trade off and go to this team, or like maybe, you know, like when we're both in college, we're on the same teams or whatever. Like it's cool. I could play with my friend. Like all my friends are at UConn or something like that, and then we all go to different teams and we find a way to come back together. Like the ability or the possibility of playing on the same team in your My Career, I think that would be the element that would push that idea forward. And I don't know why it would be hard to do, but I have to imagine that that's the challenge, because why haven't they done it yet?
Yeah.
Either it's like it hasn't been too much of a popular subject. I don't know, like there might not be as many, you know, great minds as us guys. You know,
talk that shit, Manny. Talk that shit, Manny. Let them know.
People are not
geniuses, yo. Talk that shit. Yeah.
I'm not gonna say
Kanye West energy right now. Talk that shit.
You
man.
know, I feel like being creative. I think Matt can be creative.
You're a creative genius, Manny.
All right. Yeah, interesting.
So we're still waiting on you.
I know. I honestly don't have a great answer for this one, at least not as thought-provoking as the one you just came up with. It's a really simple one for me. I just wish sports games would like allow for a spectator mode. So if like you know, if you own Madden and I want to play, you know, like let's say like all three of us on Madden and I wanted to play against you, Manny, and like Chris just wanted to watch, and like instead of me having to go like stream on Twitch or something, you know, like we could just invite him to the same lobby and he would just move to a little spectator area and he'd watch the whole game. You know, like I don't know why sports games don't have that. Like literally every sports game should have that. It feels like the simplest thing to do.
I think PlayStation has that though, like as a feature where you can like.
It's not clean though. It ain't.
I haven't used it.
Yeah.
It's
so I
basically
don't
the
know
same
how
concept though. It's just like you're streaming to
Yeah.
like another
Yeah,
PlayStation
like-
person, right? Like I just want it to be built into the game. That's it. We're done. You know, like it's literally just I invite everyone, and then there's like a spectator portion of it where I'm literally just the game is just streaming the video to whoever else is that wants to watch, and then I'll have to do all the extra work on my side. Like everybody's just connecting to the same server to see us play the game out. Like I just feel like it's such an easy thing to do, and yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because like I wanted something very similar to that a long time ago, and like I gave up on it because it literally feels like one of those features that the gaming industry just over the head. Like it just I don't know what it is.
But here's the thing, it's not though. Like so I can think of there's a large contingent of fighting games that do that. Right, like I
That is true.
used to
Yeah,
play,
I'll give you that. Yeah,
like Mortal Kombat, or whatever. Like you could just sit in the lobby and not like ready yourself up and just watch each other fight. Fortnite, you can do that. You sit in the lobby and you put yourself in like an idle mode and you just watch your friend play. And then whenever you are ready, you'll like put yourself in a ready mode or whatever. So like there are actually a number of games in the industry that do that. Why don't sports games do it?
Yeah,
It's like it's if there is any game that would make the most sense to do something like that, it would be sports games. Like I what was it the other day? I think Orlando and DJ were playing the show, and like we were all in a party
that
together.
would be funny to watch.
Oh, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Anyways, one person was getting their ass handed to them. But yeah, like I think Orlando had to stream it. It's like this is annoying. Like we were all like ready to watch it. We could have just been an easy invite everybody and then shift everybody who wasn't going to play into the spectator mode, and then we'd all just watch in real time as it happens. But no, we have to deal with like Orlando streaming it, and then like his connection potentially taking a damper because he has to play against someone online, so like he might have a little bit more latency than he needed to have. It's just like it would just been better to just have a spectator mode built into the games. It should be a prerequisite at this point for any sports game. Just have that shit baked right in. Simple. But
I like that.
Agreed.
I have my friends watching get my ass whooped.
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
simple.
I want that shit in FPSs, everything, bro.
Also, I did find it too where the old Madden. It was Madden 18. It was called target passing. So, I know that was like a whole different topic of when we're talking about
All right.
Madden using.
I'm gonna need you to send me that because I'm gonna check that out later. Because I played every Madden since like fucking back when was Peyton Hillis on the cover? Madden 12. I played literally.
Yeah.
I bought every single Madden since then. I don't remember there being the type of passing that they just introduced, but alas. Let's dive into the main topics because we spent a lot of time on this buffer for sure.
We got stuck.
Yeah, we did. That was a good conversation there, Manny. What's your answer? All right, but yeah, let's dive right into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, which in my opinion was the game of the year in that year. That was my personal game of the year. I think the only reason it didn't get nominated is because it came out in December, but whatever. Got the sequel. It's just come out. It's fucking perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's great. It's great. It's got a lot of bugs. But god damn it, it's a fucking fantastic game. It's like so far, and I know we're only like barely halfway through the year, but it's right now my game of the year. Like firmly my game of the year so far. And yeah, Manny, I know you're the only other person who's played it, so I want to let you say your 2 cents on it. But I got a couple things to talk about, I guess, in regards to the game. But yeah, what do you think about your experience so far?
Yeah, thank you. It's terrible. I returned it, got my refund. But
Jesus.
I'm actually enjoying it, man. And it's like one of the only times I can actually agree with IGN. It's like this is like the Arkham City to Arkham Asylum when that came up back in the days. Like this is a perfect sequel. It's sad that there has been a lot of bug issues. A lot of PC players complaining about how like bad the port was, and I understand. It's 2023. I feel like that should have been settled a long time ago. because like I remember going all the way back to even like when Arkham Knight came out, and Arkham Knight was getting shit on just for having a bad PC port. But overall, my console experience hasn't been too bad playing on the Series X. Enjoying the gameplay so far. I haven't beat the game yet, but I got well over like 12 hours so far. I'll say, yeah, it's an amazing game. The combat is like, fun as fuck. It's fluid. And I love it when it's like a shit ton of droids and you just like whooping everybody's ass with the dual blades.
God. It's so satisfying.
Bro, I love the new variations too. They got the Kylo Ren sword. You also got the dual blades, and then like, a blade and a blaster. I do love it. It's like it makes it more unique to, be like a Jedi. Like it's more variations. Like, why can't we get like our own Jedi? Like this game's physics and stuff like that, but like we get to create our own Jedi. I want to be a Sith Lord or something like that. But yeah, like overall, great game. The story's been like compelling and fun so far. I'm trying to get through the game. It's like I don't want to rush it, but I kind of do just to like see how everything unravels. And yeah, I'm really loving it.
It feels like it's gonna be a long game,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think on paper they said like 20, 30 hours. It just feels like it's longer than that, and I think a good portion of it has to do with the fact that the game is hard. It's fucking hard. It's hard as fuck, and I know you're playing it on the. By the way, shout out to Manny, playing it on the hardest difficulty.
Grandmaster Jedi.
He heard or he took to heart my criticism when he played Resident Evil 4. He said, "Fuck this guy, I'm going all the way in." Because I'm not even playing it on that hard of a difficulty. He's got me wanting to go up all the way. So I'm on Jedi Knight. So
I don't know what it is, but like at first when I was fighting that Rancor and I was getting my ass whooped. Like that changed me, bro. Because after that Rancor fight, I'm just like blown through enemies and stuff like that.
Bro, I still can't beat monsters. Like big monsters, I have a problem with. But like people, especially people, anyone with a lightsaber, I'm good. I'm good. Because like I'll parry, I'm good. I got him stunned. Do what I gotta do. Like the double-sided blades, Darth Maul inspired blades. Those are like my go-to for every battle. Like I recently gotten the Kylo Ren one. Actually, I've unlocked all the stances so far, but the Kylo Ren one, like I really enjoyed it at first because like it felt like a lot of power. But I just ended up going back to my double-sided blades, man.
Too slow.
Yeah, like I feel so nimble, and then like also that there's this move where I think it's just your Y move with that stance. You throw the blades like all around you, and then if you hold it again. As he's doing that move, he creates like a bigger circle of just like swinging the blade like around and killing everything. And so there was this moment where I was surrounded by droids and I did that move and it just cleared the room. And it was just like, this is the ultimate power fantasy, like being a Jedi, controlling the Force. Because actually, no, before I did that move, there's another move where you can pull everything like close to you, everything that's in the room. It's like a big Force pull move. And so I did that. Got them all close, and then hit that Y move, and it was just like, bruh, I'm a god. This is amazing, and I'm probably barely like 10% through the game because I'm seeing like TikTok clips of like the way certain people are moving and certain things that they've unlocked, and they're literally like, if y'all played Force Awakens, like Starkiller, that character, like. He's probably one of the most powerful Jedis that they've showed off like in a game aside from like Vader or whatever. Nah, Cal Kestis got his ass beat, bro. Like he's that dude. The way he's like just murdering people and not even get touched, dashing around everywhere. Like, oh man, I cannot wait to get through with this game. It needs to be in the conversation for Game of the Year by the end of the year. I know that there's a lot of other things coming down the pike. One of the games that people thought might be in conversation, Game of the Year we'll talk about soon, obviously is not going to be now. So, it only leaves like what Starfield and Spider-Man left in that conversation. So unless they got some other games, coming down the pipe that we don't know about.
Straight two, bro. You ain't heard?
What's that?
Straight two.
Oh God, get the fuck out of here.
You ain't heard, bro? That shit coming out.
That ain't getting another Game of the Year nomination. Ain't no way. Ain't no
Let's
So
see
way.
they
how
about to make a whole
Armored
other
Core is,
game
man. Armored Core might
called
be-
Wolf.
Oh, I forgot about
Armored
Armored Core. I forgot about Armored Core. I still don't know if it's gonna get a Game of the Year nomination, but
It looks fun. The game
it
does
looks cool. It definitely looks cool. I've never been a big mech gaming guy, but at the same time, like it's a From Software game, so I gotta at least pay attention to it. But it definitely does seem like a departure from all the other shit that they've been doing. But yeah, Chris, I know you haven't played this one yet, but have you been seeing anything about it? What have you been hearing about it?
Yeah, I've only been hearing positive things about this game, man. It seems like they've done their damn thing with this sequel. But it did make me kind of more re-inspired to kind of go back and finish up with the first one, just because, like, I'm not going to even hold you. Like, I barely even remember to even go back to, like, that game. Shit, I need to fucking buy a memory card so I can re-download it.
I think it is streamable. I would, think it's
Bro, you
like-
see my issues I be having, man.
I'd say just try it. Just try it. Just see what happens.
Yeah, I guess,
You'd be
I'll
surprised.
give it a shot. But I was also going to say, I might just be able to go ahead and delete what we going to talk about. Because, you know what I'm saying, I might have some space after that motherfucker right there. Because I did the pre-download. You know what I'm saying? So you can have it on day one. Yeah, I did that. So
You gotta
we might
at
do
least try it
space.
first. But
No,
we
I
gonna-
am.
We gonna get right into it. I mean, might as well. It's a perfect segue. As we talked about, Jedi Survivor came out last week. This week we got Redfall from Arcane and Microsoft and Xbox. And I think it was our very last episode that we did, right? It was about whether the game should have been delayed because of the 60 frames per second drama, yada yada yada. It's very clear that this game obviously should have been delayed, but it has nothing to do with 60 frames. Because honestly, I think the game's perfectly fine with 30 frames per second. There's just so many other things going on with this game that just don't make sense. It's out of whack. I mean, the AI is trash. Like the 30 frames in of itself is just not like smooth. It just doesn't feel fluid as a shooter. And I don't understand why, because the gameplay trails that they shown feel smooth. So like, I'm not sure what went wrong along the way. I know a lot of the times they show off PC footage, but like Manny, I mean, I'm assuming based off of your experience with it, it's still not smooth on PC, right? So
I mean, like with mine, I've always been able to I can easily run a 4K 60, except for like there's one part of the map where like as soon as you get out the firehouse and you just like this fucking dam area or whatever, it's just like open space. As soon as I looked at that shit, my shit was running at like 10 frames per second. I was like, whoa.
Well, here's my question, because when I say it's smooth versus not smooth, like I think the game is running at a stable 30 frames per second, right? It just doesn't feel
For like what the game is, it doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? We
Right.
expect this because like I know I remember a lot of people comparing it to like a Left 4 Dead kind of with vampires and stuff like that, and like this gunplay wouldn't even like match up to that. Like that kind of pace Left 4 Dead have compared to this, and I know like they say this game is more compared to like a Far Cry or whatever, and I don't know. This game just doesn't feel right. It feels rushed just to like get this out at a certain window, and it feels like there's no like TLC to it. There's no tender loving care. You know what I mean? It's like,
I do, unfortunately.
but it's like, I guess I'll go off, right? Yeah, like one thing I hate, especially on like a modern AAA game, made from a big studio that's probably funded by one of the biggest corporations ever, Microsoft. Fucking slideshow cutscenes on the AAA $70 game. I'm sorry, but like, if you're telling me you can't come up with a compelling story enough to like have decent cutscenes, not even a compelling story, but like just like something. The fact that I gotta like, watch these boring ass slideshow cutscenes just to like get the point across, it's like it's not even good.
That's the whole game. The whole game's like that.
Yes.
Yeah, there really aren't any like, I don't know. Some of the story plays out as you're playing it, but any of the cutscenes that happen,
It's all slideshow.
Yikes.
Reminds me of like fucking Infamous days. It was like we play Infamous and the sun happens. It's like, oh, you do the good or the bad, and then you get the fucking bad slideshow panels and stuff like that, or the good slideshow panels. Back in the day, it was cool. It was whatever. But we're talking about 2023, and you can't come up with at least a cutscene, bro.
But here's the thing. I don't even think.
I know it probably doesn't matter.
It's just
because there's a lot more worse than.
No. That's not what I was gonna say. I think other games can do that just fine. It's just the way it's done just feels so cheap. Like it just feels bad. It just feels bad. There's no other way to put it. It just feels bad. And I guess at some level, like, I don't know, like it's just woven into every part of the presentation of the game. It just feels cheap. Like that's the best way I can describe it. And I guess largely it feels cheap because there's a high level of expectation around it. And I think that at the end of the day, if this wasn't being billed as like a first party exclusive game, maybe it would get a little bit more slack, maybe a little bit more leeway, but it's still bad. It's still bad at the end of the day. It's still bad at the end of the day. And I just think that all the things that are going on with it are compounded by the fact that this is an Xbox game in a year previous to us not having any exclusives to talk about at all. And then this is like our first big exclusive, like AAA exclusive, I should say, of the year. And to get let down this hard, it's rough, man. It's rough. And I know that like in this business, and when I say this business, I mean like us podcasting, also like social media end of things, there's a lot of doom and gloom. Like there tends to be a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of overreactions and so on and so forth. But god damn, man, like this is such a bad look. This is such a bad look for Xbox. So last week, you also had the CMA come out, saying that they're going to block the Xbox deal. And I really don't think that means much of anything. I really think at the end of the day, they still get the deal through, like, because their reasoning behind the block was just really dumb, to be quite frank. And there's already like some conversations with UK officials, like overarching officials talking about overriding that decision because they disagree with it too, which is kind of unprecedented. But whatever, that's a different story for a different time. Either way, though, the optics of it is you lost there. Now you're coming out with this big AAA game, supposedly absolute failure, right? Like there's just no other way to put it. It's a failure, right? Like you can't put that back in the box anymore. People called for it to be pushed back because of the 60 frames thing. It clearly should have been pushed back for different reasons. The AI one alone is such a big issue. Like there's so many clips, so many instances of like the cultist in the world and the I keep saying zombies, the vampires, like just bumping into walls, being like walking back and forth. You kill one of the vampires like while they're sleeping, and then the other one doesn't wake up. Like just a lot of like logic failures, as far as the game goes. And I understand that at some level this game was an experiment by Arcane Austin, and they wanted to try something a little different, whatever, after making Prey. But man, dude, like it's just bad.
It was very lazy. And like, oh man, like I remember how you mentioned the AI. I remember watching Moist Critical, just playing it, and it was just like in the beginning when you're in the firehouse in the basement, and like the first vampire just comes at you. Dude literally ran behind a box, and the vampire fucking floating in front of the box. It just would not like move around or anything like that just because he's hiding behind a box. Or it was like a wooden crate, and then he was like, "Oh wait, I get it. It's because it's wood." You know what I mean? Like how much
I made a joke about it, yeah. but I do think that this solidifies what I was saying about the whole 60 frames argument, and that I don't think it's a power of the Xbox issue. I think this is the failure on a design standpoint. Like the studio severely fucked up here with designing the game, because you can't tell me that the Xbox itself isn't capable of creating good AI, right? Like there's nothing spectacular about this game that would cause it to push the limits of an Xbox Series S, let alone an X, right? Let alone an X. Not it can't even push the Series S, in my opinion. So, I just don't understand what happened there. It's not like it's densely populated world where there's tons of vampires and you're fighting a ton of vampires at any given time. Like, I think we maxed out at like 6 the other day when we were playing, right? Like, I don't know, man. I don't understand how you let this happen. And I understand that a lot of reports are coming out that Xbox didn't really have a lot of say in what was going on with Redfall in regards to, like, they were pretty hands off with Bethesda. They've been hands off with Bethesda since this acquisition's gone through. And Manny and I were talking about this when we were getting set up for the podcast, and Chris, you weren't necessarily here for this, but I said that's largely a good thing that Xbox, Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, these guys, they're not necessarily interfering with what Bethesda has, because, with the exception of Fallout 76, they've made nothing but great games. I mean, I still think Fallout 76 is a great game, but like,
yeah, it's not bad.
From a critical standpoint, as far as like review scores and things like that, like, generally speaking, their games are universally loved, right? And 76 is the lowest point they've had up until now. This is hands down the worst Bethesda game that I think I've played, and I guess what's crazy about that is that, like, Bethesda games in general, like that cluster of studios has made nothing but 9, 8.5 quality games, right? Like, that's the lowest they've gone. So to have it drop down to like a 4, I'll give the game a 4. Like, to have it drop from that kind of a caliber is just, it's crazy, man. Like, it's a big problem. And I can understand, giving the studio some leeway, but at some level, I think Phil Spencer has a little bit of blame here, because you can't tell me you didn't play the game beforehand, right? You can't tell me you didn't play it at all before it came out. So, and you thought this was like acceptable, like the way it was, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm glad you said it, because I was definitely gonna get him. I'm glad you said that shit.
Spencer picked up the controller and said, "This shit hot garbage, but we need to release something."
I mean, but and that's the speculation, right? Is it like we've been cooking this for too long, we just have to get it out there? Which, honestly, I think that's fine. But don't promote the game. Like, I just don't promote it the way you've been promoting it, Like, just throw it out there. Say, hey, this is something that we've been working on. Give it the treatment of like of Grounded or Pentiment or any of those other, like whenever they acquire a studio and that studio has a passion project that's basically an indie game, and you drop it and you create very low levels of expectation for it and people love it. I think if there was no hype around Redfall at all and you just dropped that shit out of nowhere randomly on Game Pass and said, hey, this is an early access game, we're having a completely different conversation. Because I guarantee you, in a year, Redfall will be a very playable game, probably be a ton of fun as like a throwaway, hey, let's just play some Redfall and fuck around or whatever. I guarantee you, in a year, they will get it to that point. So why not just do, like, either push the game back or do the early access thing? Like, you have the multiple options. And I think the thing that makes all of this worse is, again, the backdrop of last year, the backdrop of Halo having all the shit that happened recently, like the narrative of, Xbox doesn't have any games. There's just so many things gnawing at Xbox and Phil Spencer's heels about, a lot of the stuff that, honestly, they don't even necessarily have a lot of control over. But this is one of those things you do. This is literally one of the things you do. Push the game back. Or just scrap it if you had to. You didn't have to release this. You didn't even have to announce it. But you had enough confidence to announce it at the end of a showcase 2 years ago to say, hey, this is going to be an amazing game, whatever. Like, and everybody's excited for it. And
but like, it's a disappointment. That's going to be my final thought on this. No,
Chris, I want you to go ahead and share your thoughts with us here, man.
You hit a lot of my same points that I was going to harp on. I was definitely going to talk about the idea of, like, What's good with playtesting? What's good with stress testing your game? What's good with, I don't know, having a team of people in your studio that says, all right, we're going to play it first and then we're going to get some beta guides. Like, there's supposed to be all these waves of like getting your game to where you want it. And it feels like that didn't happen, or it either did happen and there was some fuck-its.
I can tell you. I can tell you from my time working at Microsoft, not necessarily anywhere near the Xbox division. We got like it's something called dog fooding. They would like let you play with and like try things that were coming out. I'm very confident that other studios got a chance to play this game ahead of time. What the hell happened?
Yeah, that yeah, and you know it's unfortunate, man. And I'm not gonna hold you. This makes me worried about Hellblade. Very worried about Hellblade. I think the one game that they may hopefully get right, because they can't afford for Starfield to fuck up. Like they're not gonna release that game if it's not ready by this release date that they gave us. There's no way. There's no way. If they fuck up with Starfield, we got to have a conversation about a couple things, yo. I'm gonna tell y'all that right now.
That happens right now. Sides.
I think. So there's two things you brought up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're reasonable. And I think that this is the problem with having a situation like this. So I'll start with my opinion, right? There's no way in hell Starfield is going to be as bad as Redfall, and I'll die on that hill. I don't care. I'll die on that hill. Like the pedigree, the pedigree of the people that are in charge of that are too high caliber, and for what they're making, it's not like deviating that far from what they've done with Fallout. So they know what they're doing. I think the problem with something like a Redfall is that it's an experimental game, and they're chasing a trend, right, with the looter shooter side of things. So I think that's part of why you run into that problem. There ain't no way in hell Hellblade's. We've seen too much about the game so far. There's no way in hell that game is bad. Maybe it'll have some bugs when it comes out, and I think like that's the worst. Not the worst. That's the best case scenario. Unfortunately, the best case scenario nowadays with certain games is like, okay, it's got some bugs, whatever. Like we talked about, we just literally just ran through it with Jedi Survivor. It's like it's a fucking great game, but it has bugs. But it's still a fucking fantastic game. It's game of the year quality. I think we're at the point now where like any game that releases, I think you're gonna expect bugs. It's just inevitable. I hate saying that. I absolutely hate saying that because it doesn't let anyone off the hook. Like you shouldn't have bugs. Period. Like you should be releasing a full-fledged experience. Like we're all going to sit here and agree to that right now. But at the same time, forget COVID, forget any of that stuff. I think once you unlock the door to be able to update your game after the fact online, you left the door open for like, we can excuse a bug here or there. Or like also just these games are really big and sometimes they're just bugs that you're not going to get because they're just so granular. Like you can't test literally every single situation of every single game, especially when they're this immense. So, sometimes things happen, but yeah, there's I just in my eyes, there's just no way Ninja Theory. There's nothing that's changed enough about that studio that tells me, oh, they'll just completely fuck up Hellblade 2. It's the same people essentially working on the game with a bigger budget, and they've been working on it for quite some time under Microsoft. It's not like, again, Redfall was in production well before Microsoft bought, the studios, and they basically allowed them to just continue doing their thing in silence. So I will say that I don't think either one of those games should necessarily be, not should be questioned. I don't think that they will be bad. But your thought, your theory or whatever, just the statement that you made is valid. And I think that's the problem. It's like a lot of people will probably feel that way, and it's justifiable to feel that way, even though I still think those games are going to be fantastic. My thing with Microsoft is, you've put yourself in a situation where you need to be absolutely perfect in every single thing that you do, right? Actually, no, I'm not gonna say. I was gonna give you an example that I think all of us, especially you and I, Chris, would understand, but I'm not gonna take it too far into that. But I just think when you're in a certain place and things are stacked against you, You have to be perfect. You cannot leave any room for error, any margin for error, any margin for anybody to tell you anything. And that's exactly where Xbox has been, because they fucked up last generation and like they're starting to flounder again here. You know, you just cannot leave room for error, because once you start casting that doubt, things start to snowball down. And even if you have an absolute banger on your hands, you know, like it may not necessarily matter if you keep fumbling and kicking the can down as far as you do. So like Starfield is unfortunately now a make or break situation for this year. Yeah. If Hellblade comes out this year, and that's another thing too, right? So now we put pressure on Hellblade. So like maybe they were going to give Hellblade a little bit of room, and you know, release it early next year. Maybe now they got to put a little bit of pressure and say, hey, we need this to come out this year. You know, like squeeze it into whatever window, you know, you may have. Like it just creates so many problems, man. It just creates so many problems. And I would imagine that it's probably other things that they have cooking as well that I don't know. It's just
frustrating. And you know, I think there's another thing that we haven't like really touched on yet is every time this happens, I think it worsens the value. Well, not worsens the value, but worsens the perception of value for Game Pass, right? Because it's like the hook is supposed to be these games are released day one and you get them for your subscription. And it's like, okay, we're not getting them on day one because you're pushing a lot of shit back already. And then when we get it, it's not good. You know, so it's like at some point it's like people are going to start questioning, all right, I get it. We have a whole library of games that we could choose from to play. And that's cool and all, but when is it going to capitalize on the whole you gave me a banger from day one aspect? Because if you think about Halo and if you think about this, and again, if they fuck up with these other games, that's kind of what the narrative is going to start to be. And I wonder if people will start to think to themselves, you know, why do I have this thing? Why? So I could play Night at Freddy's 1 through 5? Like, no, nobody gives a fuck about that shit. We really are here to be able to play some of this new shit right the fuck away. That's the main pull for, I think, a lot of people. Right now, I don't know, I just think that's getting a little fucked up based upon how this stuff is happening, you know?
While I hear you, I push back on that because there's just too much shit, bro. There's so much stuff coming to Game Pass, like I get some of the first party stuff. I understand that conversation for sure. But like even you talked about Halo, like the Halo campaign, there was no problem with Halo campaign, right? Like that came out and it was great. Like that wasn't the launch of Halo wasn't the problem. The problem was the after the fact stuff with the multiplayer, which is free anyways. So like Game Pass argument kind of diminishes there. Like I definitely hear you with Redfall and not getting enough first party content consistently enough. But there's a ton of stuff that keeps launching on Game Pass that people are constantly talking about. So I don't know if I'm like, I have to push back on that a little bit. Like the show just came out. That's a huge game. People are playing that on Game Pass day one. You know, like, and like that's something that PlayStation users don't have, even though that's a PlayStation like Studios game. Like there's a lot of games that are on Game Pass that are, even if they're not necessarily first party games, there's a lot of third party games that are releasing day one and they're fucking amazing. Like the Wulong, Disappearance of Benedict Fox, I think is one that's coming or had just come out. Like there's a lot of great content that's coming out on Game Pass day one. It's just that Microsoft's not necessarily the ones making it. That's the problem though. Yeah, that's what I mean. Because like I don't know about you guys, but that's like the main narrative that folks who fuck with Microsoft say when you tell them about it. They ain't got no games. They ain't got no games. They ain't got no games. It's the number one thing that people always bring up. Yeah. And this shit, it just doesn't help any of the argument, man. Well, my only argument was that I don't think that leaks into Game Pass because it's like it's a completely different entity, right? Like, yes, there are not enough exclusive games. Absolutely agree with you. But there are a lot of third-party things coming into Game Pass that are great.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like at some point, don't you think that if the first party games are not really coming out how they're supposed to, what truly separates Game Pass from PlayStation Plus and shit like that?
So PlayStation Plus still doesn't really have like a lot of games that are coming out day and date like that. You're not getting a Wulong in PlayStation Plus. You're not getting the show in PlayStation Plus, right? Like you're not like those things just aren't happening. So like if you're looking at it pound for pound as what it is right now, you're still getting like infinitely greater value on Game Pass. If they didn't, if right now they said we are no longer doing first party exclusive games in Game Pass, it's still far and away a better deal than PlayStation Plus, and it's not even close. So,
do you think the perception of the public is that way though? Because I think that's like where I'm coming out with it.
I think the perception, the public perception is still yes that it's a much better value, even if you take all of that stuff out. Because again, these last 2 years we haven't had exclusive games, and every year people are like, "Well, Game Pass is great." Like nobody's saying like, "Oh, Game Pass sucks." Like people are still talking about how the greatness of Game Pass because they're still getting great games. So it's one of those things where like Microsoft is definitely getting away with it because they're supplementing their lack of first party stuff with making some third party deals like the Wulong deal and so on and so forth. But they need to do better. I'm not saying that they can get a. I mean, they can get away with this for a little bit longer. I do think from a Game Pass standpoint, but I don't think Game Pass is the only thing at this point. Like there's a different narrative going on. The narrative around the Xbox brand, not necessarily Game Pass. And I think that those two things are actually separated in this instance. Because like I said, there's just too many good games and good content coming into Game Pass for it to really diminish all the other shit, right? And at the end of the day, like, yeah, Redfall is not a great game, but like you're also not necessarily paying anything to play it. So like you get a chance to try it. Like it's for all of the things that we said about the game, like I downloaded it and was playing it with these guys and I was having a lot of fun. But you still understand like this is bad, you know? So there's still value in the sense that you can play these games and try things out and, you know, whatever, what have you. I just think that PlayStation Plus isn't doing enough to compete, right? Like, yeah, sure. If PlayStation makes that push, which it seems like they're very much not interested in doing, if they make that push to do so, then maybe we have a different conversation. And the perception can easily lean more towards PlayStation if they decide to say, hey, Spider-Man 2 comes out on PlayStation Plus or whatever, you know, and like starts doing those types of things. Sure, you can make an argument there, but I think Microsoft is doing enough for Game Pass to like keep that being as great as it is in of itself. Whenever they get this shit figured out with these first party games, now we're talking about it launching into a different stratosphere. But Game Pass is great. Nothing Microsoft's doing is hurting it. It's more about pushing it to the next level now.
It's just more like not only that, but like the first party content. You know, as long as Microsoft, you know, hopefully Starfield won't be as bad of a flop as Redfall, but you know, that's the only thing. They just got to work on that. And you know, like I can see why Chris was like mentioning Game Pass because there are like some, you know, people like considering is like, oh, is Game Pass ruining, you know, the first party games because. I don't know, like, what's the incentives with it because there's a difference between, like, people downloading a game and playing it from a subscription compared to, like, spending $70 and end up playing, you know, the game because, you know, the $70, I'm sure majority goes to the studio. I just don't know how, like, the revenue splits go from, you know, the first parties, you know, title games and stuff like that, but, yeah.
I just feel like that argument is so...
Like, I don't know if they're,
baseless.
like, not as... I don't know. So, like, you know, Microsoft buys Bethesda. You know, they're probably handing them blank checks, you know, do whatever you want, you know, paying them big time. But that's, like, you drop a trash-ass game like this, like, is it because Microsoft is like, okay, here, do this. I'm not going to keep an eye on you, but you keep on working your mojo. And, you know, they're not... Since they're not being constantly monitored and... you know, having to make drastic changes because of it, like, already getting lazy. That's kind of my point right here. You know what I mean? Like, are we going to see a lot of more lazy developments, whatever, you know, like, are they going to get a lot lazier just because it is on a streaming service compared to, like, a God of War, which is going to be, like, a $70 game day one, and, like, you know, the studio will probably see most of the revenue compared to, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just baffling.
So here's the consequence of if the next game that Arcane Austin creates is trash, what's going to happen to that studio? It's going to close. Like Microsoft's not in the business of losing money. They're just not.
Well, no.
So like I just don't, that makes no sense, man. Like Microsoft's interested in making money. They're not just gonna allow these studios to just keep creating shitty games and like have nothing happen, right? These people's jobs are still on the line. Like they still have to worry about this type of stuff. So like, yeah, Microsoft's giving them a blank check, but like I push back on the idea like Game Pass is ruining gaming. How? Like there's no realistic
that's
place.
a whole argument right there.
There's no realistic place that like, oh, they're just gonna keep pushing out shovelware for Game Pass. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like
I was talking about more like the first party standpoint, because the third party titles, Xbox be like, yo, here's a check, put this on my subscription service. They already put the hard work and stuff like that to the game. Like, for example, like with Oolong, like they worked hard for that game. And then Microsoft was like, okay, I like this. Let me put this on my service. Compared to like, okay, this is, Arcane is a Microsoft studio. Microsoft is already the ones funding them. So, like, like I said, they just might not be as motivated just because, I don't know, like...
Okay, so I think...
I'm probably not explaining it correctly how I wanted to.
Well, I think I'm understanding, like, the underlining question, right? So, if you look at God of War and, it makes $20 million, it's considered a success, and that studio can breathe easy, right? So, you're talking more about how you measure success when you have Game Pass? I mean, it sounds like that's ultimately what you're talking about, right?
It's like, is there an incentive for these guys at the first party studios? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
because they're not getting paid as much from the split. So, like, you think they're not going to go as hard?
Because, like I said, like you mentioned, like, let's say God of War sells 20 million copies. 20 million times 60, that's $120 million right there. Obviously, God of War is a, different breed. That game's, just, that's a whole different level. That's fucking quadruple A tier compared to Microsoft's triple A tier. But what is it called? Like, it's like third party titles. Like, of course we're gonna get bangers because Microsoft is willing to shell out like checks just to get these games on the service, just for the service to look nice. But like, what worries me is just like the first party games just not really hitting as they should. And granted, like Game Pass is still a great service, but when you pay $15 a month to download a game once and be like, all right, this shit is trash, delete, and then it's like,
So, okay. So there are a lot of different ways to tackle what you're saying. So, people still buy games. Even though Game Pass exists, people still buy games. So there's that. Like what? I think Halo had like over 1 million copies sold or whatever, like within a certain time frame. So like even though the existence of Game Pass was there, Halo still sold a ton of copies. So there's that. The next side of that is, I think the idea is that the metric changes, right? Like Microsoft has obviously talked about this. They're looking at subscribers. So like if your game drives a certain subscriber, like we talked about Netflix as an example beforehand. It's the same way Netflix measures what shows do and don't get renewed. Like you see there's a ton of shows on Netflix that get canceled entirely, right? Netflix is handing out blank checks left and right for you to make the shit. But if it's not getting enough people to subscribe, or like not enough people are viewing it or playing it or whatever, guess what? You get cut. You don't, you're not making another season of that show or whatever. We're not making another movie from this particular director. Like even though there's not like money involved in like determining the value of, oh, this game sold X amount of copies, they still have metrics of hours played, subscribers, like joining the service and all that type of stuff. So I just feel like the metrics are different now. I don't think that the expectations around like creating quality work changes. Like if you create a bad game, there's a problem there. Like they might cut your budget for your next game because you're not producing as much. They might just cut your studio entirely. People get fired. Like literally look at what happened with 343. Like tons of people got laid off. I think a whole section of their studio got laid off entirely. The studio heads lost their jobs entirely. Like it's not just like, oh, like do whatever I want and there's no consequences. You know what I mean? So like, I just don't see that making a lot of sense. Like Game Pass is a service and it's doing well, but there's still the like critical and financial success of your specific game. And if it's not coming to the table the way it needs to, Microsoft has shown that they're not afraid to make the changes that they need to make for that to happen. So, you know, Austin, like there are some changes that might have to happen because of how bad Redfall just went down, right? And, you know, and again, the fact that Microsoft was taking such a hands-off approach with Bethesda, largely because they had continued to do what they needed to do, right? Like the biggest two, well, I think the only three things that released since Microsoft purchased Bethesda was Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, and oh my god, we were just talking about this. No, we were just talking about this. The one that came out, Shadow dropped earlier this year. Hi-Fi Rush. Like all three of those games, even though we don't care for Ghostwire Tokyo, they were all well received, right? All well received games. So like, you know, it kind of makes sense to be like, all right, you guys are good, you know, do what you got to do. But now this is a tremendous failure. So like, you would have to imagine there may be some changes coming along.
But it's weird though, because like, don't you think it's weird that those games are critically acclaimed, but they were because it was a previous deal with PlayStation, but then when Xbox comes in and, you know, sets up their own shop, I don't know.
Well, Hi-Fi Rush Hi-Fi Rush is the one that kind of breaks that conversation. But I mean, yeah, I really just think at the end of the day, it's just that Arcane and Austin made a bad game, and that's really what it boils down to. And there was pressure on them because of the previous things that were happening on Xbox. But, you know, now there's all these different conversations about it, and, you know, confidence is shaken and so on and so forth. Like, I think it's just like Redfall is a small problem, or like a small part of a bigger problem that was already going on about people's perception of things, and people were waiting for Redfall to be the thing that was different, and it just wasn't. So like, boom, now we're back here, this like doom and gloom shit that people have been talking about for a while now. So,
yeah. And see, my thing is like, it didn't even need to be different. Like the different thing was like a cherry on top of the sundae, you know?
When I say different, I just meant like different as in like successful.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because they could have gave us a really predictable game that was fire, and I would have been happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that would have been fine. You know, so that shit sucks, man.
Yeah, I just meant different as far as shifting the narrative.
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah.
I got you.
You know what I think? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought did you hear
go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I don't know. Like, we know Redfall is an open world game. Do you think open world games nowadays are just getting lazy in the sense where it's like they're focused on creating a bigger world that's like empty? You know what I mean? With like nothing really to do, but they want it to be open world so that the game looks bigger than it actually is. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like you got to go to point A to point B. The shit's across the map. So like, yeah, the journey is gonna take longer to get there, but in reality, like, you know,
I don't think anybody's making an open world game and purposely making it empty. I don't think.
Well, not empty, but like in a sense of just like boring. You know what I mean? Like, I just felt like, at least me personally, when I played a little bit of Redfall, it just felt boring to me. And do you think maybe like companies should start making a shift from these open world games and going back to how these linear games used to be? And it's like there's like I'm starting to miss that, because like, granted, like open world games are nice to know. Like we got Jedi, Survivor, and you know the open world is amazing. But then it's like Redfall, where it's like bland and boring, and it's like I'd rather, instead of making it like a huge ass open world, just give me like a good story with a linear like pathway. You know what I mean? Like, I think the open world genre has kind of been a little like too overplayed, in my opinion. But I know that's like a whole different topic for a different day, probably.
Well, my first question would be, what other game do you feel like has done what Redfall's done, in that it's open world and it's boring and it's just a sake of like big for the sake of being big? I would have to like
look back at my catalog, because I'm sure there's a different game. Like, I'm sure there's multiple games I played before. It's like, this game is fun, but like the open world is like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I personally I think it just gets boring at time when it's like you got this massive open world and half the time you're spending is just traveling to one destination to another just to complete a story mission. You know what I mean? And it's like I feel like that could change. I mean,
I just think that Redfall is bad. Just for the sake
I
of
mean,
bad.
that game is just bad.
But here's the like trap that I think you might be falling into is like, oh well, like is there a trend in this game that like other games are doing that maybe if they didn't do it, like, you know, it wouldn't be a problem. No, like this is bad. It's just bad.
It is bad, you know,
like it's taken the trends that have been successful in a lot of other games and just didn't do it properly. And I think that's really like it's just that simple. Like I don't think if you make this game linear and like still continue to have all these problems that anything changes. Yeah. Like the AI is dumb. You know, like it's just bad, you know, like I think that there's plenty of opportunities to make interesting things happen in an open world like that. Like, I mean, honestly, there were a couple interesting instances that happened when we were playing, you know, like we ran into like this crazy like horde of zombies and like there's a lot of secrets to run into and so on and so forth. So like it wasn't all bad and all empty, but I just think there just wasn't enough there because they just didn't make a good enough game. Like I really just think it's just that in this instance, it is literally that simple. There's probably some other games you could really dissect and go into and be like, well, this is a trend that probably just needs to die in gaming. And like, you know, maybe like this didn't need to be open world for the sake of being open world. I couldn't see a world where this was like a linear game and it was still good.
Yeah. Like the only argument you can really make is like, maybe it's like, since it is open world, they focused maybe a little more on that, like world building and stuff like that. But I don't know. Like, it just sucks because, you know, we got this game. We were expecting it to be like a good game, and it wasn't, you know? Like,
yeah.
I'm starting to like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like, I just feel like, and I hate this because like, you know, I mean, I love when video games get shown in a lot, but like, I'm starting to just like get to the point where it's like, don't show anything until this shit is like spotless. And I know obviously it's impossible to be spotless nowadays. There's a lot of bugs that, you know, can be exploited and stuff like that. But like, I'm just don't show me it unless it's ready. Don't hype it up. Nothing. Like, give me a final product that, you know, me as a user can enjoy. And then like after the shit drops, fucking drop all your hype media shit if the game's good. You know, like if it sucks, I don't want it.
But see, now that's a different.
I know it's a whole different argument.
It's a different argument. We were talking about this before. It's like you have to market games, right? Like you can't just shadow drop everything because you have to like have some ramp up.
You gotta build the hype, like for people to want to go on your platform and stuff like that, or not even just that, but like for people wanting to play your product.
Right. Like not everybody's like as connected as you and I, right? You have to push this to eyeballs of people who aren't regularly looking for gaming content, right? So like. You have to draw up hype. Like it's tough, but like I feel like really what it boils down to at the end of the day is we all just need to manage our expectations differently about shit, about everything that anyone's making.
Yeah, man.
That would be easier if they would give more vague hype shit. You know what I mean? Like they really, I hope going forward, will never put out another showcase or anything that says these are all coming out this year or this night. Don't do no more of that type of shit.
Well,
because I think that's where they're shooting themselves in the foot.
I think they're shooting themselves in the foot with that. But when I say like we need to manage our own expectations, they can do whatever the hell they want. I'm talking about like they can show whatever sizzle reel, whatever. Like we need to like, you know, have an understanding within ourselves that like, hey, this could suck, you know, like, and internalize that and have that be what it is. It's their job to hype this shit up at the end of the day, right? It is their job to hype this shit up. And it's like, it doesn't make me feel great to say that like we should all just expect everything to be shit because like it's a very like nihilist, like negative way to look at the world. So like, I don't want that necessarily, but I'm just saying, you know, like at the end of the day, like, it probably is just easier to just be like, whatever, like I'll just play this and see what it's like and have that be the end of it. And I think that's easy to do when you have games coming out on Game Pass because you don't have to worry about shelling out money for it. But, you know, other games is a bit of a different story. You need to feel something in your, you know, to make you want to shell out $70, right? Like I mean, unless you want to wait for reviews, but even then I don't really fully trust reviews because if if I listened to reviews, I probably wouldn't go play Jedi Survivor. Like some of the reviews had come out, not IGN's review, but like
I was gonna say that shit is. I've seen a lot of 10s across the board.
right. But there's like a number of them that are like, well, I don't even know if you should play this game because the bugs are this, that, and the other. And it's like, are you dumb? Like this game is fucking great. But anyways, I think at the end of the day, like for me personally, there's just a level of like, all right, I'll just keep a healthy level of skepticism, and that sucks because that's not really it's not good for gaming. It's not good for gaming at all. But there have been too many disappointments since the time that we started this podcast. There's so many like hyped up AAA games that have just been like, starting with Cyberpunk, right? Like that's probably the first one from when we started this thing, and it's just been more and more of them, with crazy bugs or this or that. And and ironically, like one of the games that I was the least hyped for was like one of my favorite games of like the last decade. It's crazy how that type of shit works. Hell, fucking that Guardians game. We all were sitting there talking mad shit about it, and that game ended up being amazing. So like,
I think we just got to start talking more shit.
I guess so. Just be a absolute cynic. Just fucking rage at everything. I don't know. I will say we've been going quite some time on the Redfall stuff. I think we probably should skip the PlayStation 5 Pro conversation. Maybe save that for next week, because we're already well over an hour here. But yeah. Anything you guys wanted to say to put a pin in the Redfall conversation, or Xbox as a whole?
They better get that fucking Starfield right, bro. That shit better be motherfucking Mike Tyson of a video game. You feel what I'm saying? That shit better hit.
It really does. It has to hit. It has to hit like Elden Ring levels of like.
Yeah.
If it don't hit, man,
undeniable hit.
I'm about to just like, all right, where's my Sony cap?
Because I don't know. That's gonna be tough, bro. Yeah, man.
Like, I appreciate Game Pass, especially for the simple fact that like it's integrated to PC as well, and I've been playing a lot more PC. But I don't know, man. The box just like, I still love the box because that's where all the boys play. But other than that, Game Pass, like I can get it on PC. There's nothing really going for it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you don't really play on your Xbox anyway.
I know.
So like,
I really don't. I play most all the games that are cosplay on PC. Like the only games I wouldn't be able to play is like, I know I haven't played in like a long ass time ago. It was like Siege, when I play that like that once in a while. But
yeah. I mean, as far as like either console, like I still have both, and I'm still gonna play both exclusives. I still prefer playing my games on Xbox, one way or the other. But I think as far as their first party stuff, they really need to start figuring that out, like being more consistent. And I know, like, and that's the other thing is like, they're like on this precipice of like all these studios y'all bought, and you need to start churning out more shit and more shit and more shit. And it's like, where is it?
I'm tired of seeing Minecraft.
Where
is it? Got Minecraft Legends. I don't want to see that shit. Come on, Mojang.
And it's like, I know, like, we end up saying this type of thing all the time, but like, so they just announced like officially that the Xbox showcase is going to be happening June 11th. So we'll be here live streaming that for sure. But yeah, that's going to be happening immediately afterwards. It's going to be the Starfield Direct, right? Like, those presentations need to also go perfectly, like absolutely perfectly.
I know Gears of War is another one of those franchises that are just like slowly getting repetitive, but
I don't. That's not really fair, in my opinion, with Gears, because I just think they haven't come out with a new game in a while. I think the moment you come out with a new game, that fan base gets reignited very quickly. And I think that they could, and I don't like saying this, but I feel like they could come out with a very similar game to Gears 5 and just get everybody fucking hyped as shit again. I'm hoping they don't do that. Please really don't do that. But
it's gonna be Gears 6 is gonna be an Unreal 5. I'm expecting fucking balls to the wall, like everything better be spotless, man.
Well, graphically, that shit's gonna hit. Like it's just gonna hit. And I think the fact that it's on Unreal 2 also kind of diminishes a lot of the bugs that you may see from some of the other games because they know that engine. Like the guys that work on Gears know that engine. Like that game comes out, it's good. Like I don't think Gears 5 had like noticeable like bugs or anything that people were really talking about. So that's the other thing about buggy games nowadays. It's like if you drop it on Unreal, it's a lot less likely to be a problem. So changes perspectives on things for sure. But yeah, at the end of the day, they really got to come correct. I mean, if we see a new Gears, that'd be dope. But Hellblade is really one we need to see. Forza we need to get a hard date on, and then that Starfield Direct is going to be major too. And that's one good thing about when Todd Howard does his thing. We're going to see the game, right? Like we're not going to see like I don't know,
like a minute cinematic trailer,
right? Like he's gonna be sitting there playing the game, talking about it. I think that's one of the other things as to why like I feel pretty confident about the game being good, because I just don't think that man's gonna get up in front of a screen and like sit there for a half hour to an hour talking about a game, and like we're all gonna be looking at it like, what the fuck? This looks like trash. Like I just don't see that happening. That guy is just too. He's legendary as far as like game designers go, and like he knows what he knows, and I just have a hard time believing that he's gonna get up on that screen and be like, "Here's Starfield," and it's just like, "Oh, like this isn't working." Like, "Oh, this like this that like it's." Just, I think that game is gonna be great. It's just a matter of how. Like, is it gonna be good or is it going to be great? And it needs to be great. It really needs to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually, I think, in their press release. They said, damn, I should have pulled this up. I should have had it ready. I'm sorry, guys. But I'm pretty sure in the press release, they mentioned something, a tease about a brand new game entirely, that there'll be like a brand new IP entirely that they'll be introducing. So, it really is time for us to start getting some more concrete dates or more concrete information on a lot of the stuff that's coming, because they've announced a lot. They've announced a lot of stuff that really could be good. It just needs to happen. We need to start seeing it, because Redfall is just not a good look. You got to get that taste out of our mouths as quickly as possible. All right, yeah, and with that, I think we'll wrap it up here. So again, guys, thank you for watching and listening. Let us know what you guys think about everything we talked about: Redfall, the state of Xbox, Jedi Survivor. Make sure to if you guys are watching this on YouTube.com/@XPacPod, make sure to drop a comment down below. If you guys are checking us out on our social media stuff, make sure to let us know what you guys think there. So @XPacPod on Twitter and Instagram, and then also Xpansion Pad Podcast with an X on TikTok. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching and listening. Peace.
Hey, yo.